Virginia Congressman Bob Good joins us now. Congressman, thank you for taking time, joining us here on the January 2nd, first day. You're going to have a busy day tomorrow on the Hill. My first question to you, sir, because you're one of the five, is there any scenario under which you could support and vote for Kevin McCarthy?
No, I won't be voting for Kevin McCarthy tomorrow. He's part of the problem. He's not part of the solution. I'll be following the will of my constituents, the voters of Virginia's 5th District, who hundreds of which have told me over the past couple of years not to support Kevin McCarthy. What I told them when I started my first term 2 years ago is I would judge him by what he did as minority leader, and there's nothing he's done to earn my vote. There's nothing that indicates to me that he's going to change his pattern since he's been in leadership, where he's part of the swamp cartel. He's the reason on the Republican side, while we passed massive omnibus spending bills like just got rammed down our throats by Republicans in the Senate, he was part of that in leadership since he's been in leadership over the past 8 years. There's nothing about Kevin McCarthy that indicates that he will bring the change that's needed to Washington or that's needed to the Congress, or he'll bring the fight against the Biden-Schumer agenda and represent the interests of the voters who sent us to Washington to bring real change.
Congressman, you wrote in an op-ed that we must elect a speaker who will pursue a true conservative policy agenda. So if it's not Kevin, who would you vote for?
Well, what we'll do is we'll block Kevin. There'll be, I suspect, 10 to 15 members who will vote against him on the first ballot tomorrow that will vote for Andy Biggs. But then I think you'll see on the second ballot an increasing number of members vote for a true candidate who can represent the conservative center of the conference, can motivate the base, inspire Republicans across the country, get to 218 votes, bring our conference together to fight against the radical Democrat agenda, the most extreme agenda we've ever seen.
Wait, let me stop you there. Who is that name? Here we are in the 11th hour. There are no names. Give me a name. It's not Andy Biggs. Andy Biggs isn't going to win.
Well, I'm not going to resist for a few more hours what I have resisted for the last several weeks, because, as you know, if we were to put forth a name right now or over the last few weeks, that person would suffer all the attacks and retaliation and all the threats.
So you don't have a name. I mean, what leader?
Absolutely. Griff, you'll see that name tomorrow on the second ballot.
Okay, so let me ask you this, because, and I don't mean to browbeat you, but here we are with so many issues that Republicans want to get going. Comer wants to get started on the oversight. Jordan wants to get started on judiciary, and this clearly is going to hold it up. You say you will block in that first vote. You're laying down the marker. Will you accept responsibility for the damage that may do to Republicans as they try and begin a new chapter?
You know, it's funny, Griff. Conservative pundits, conservative media has criticized Kevin McCarthy and the Republican leadership, the Republican establishment all of these years, and yet they want us to now surrender to that and to vote for the status quo, to continue what we've always done, so we'll get what we've always gotten. Some of us came to Congress to bring true transformational change to Congress, to Washington. We're willing to risk everything to save this country, to save the republic. We're teetering on the brink as a country with an open border, with $32 trillion in national debt, a woke education system, a weakened military, and we don't know what we will get with Kevin McCarthy. So we're going to block that. To suggest that out of 222 members of Congress on the Republican side, there's only one person who can be the speaker just because he happens to be the current minority leader or the minority leader.
Who is he? Is it? Could you envision Steve Scalise elevating from majority leader?
We'll find out tomorrow on the second ballot, Griff.
So if that indeed occurs in the second ballot, what is it? What proof do you have that there is enough votes for that person on a second ballot? Because you've got so many of the Republicans that said, hey, we wanted these changes, particularly the motion to vacate, which McCarthy has given, along with several of the rule changes that McCarthy laid out yesterday that conservatives wanted. How are you going to get the numbers for that person? It seems like you're headed into a real mess.
Griff, we shouldn't be in a hurry to make a bad decision. It's worth it to fight for a few hours or even a few days to get the best possible person for speaker instead of just surrendering to the status quo, surrendering to the establishment. Now, if you want earmarks continued, Kevin McCarthy is your speaker. If you want massive Democrat spending bills passed for the Republican majority, as happened the last time he was the majority leader when we had control of Congress, Kevin McCarthy is your speaker. If you want to surrender the power of the purse and to not fight for true change, for true conservative principles, Kevin McCarthy would be your choice for Speaker. But that's not what we're going to vote for tomorrow. And there's many Republicans within our conference who are privately acknowledging they know he doesn't have the votes. They know that he's not a trustworthy leader. They know he's not a real conservative. And they're ready to vote against him once we put forth a true challenge candidate on that second ballot.
Well, I think a majority of Republicans seem to want to get started to address those issues you mentioned. And there are reports out there this morning in some of the Washington press that this is personal for you. In just the last 10 seconds, how do you respond to that? Is this personal?
That's just silly. We're doing what we know is right for the country, what our constituents want us to do. We're doing this for those who voted for us to bring true change to Washington, fight against the Biden-Schumer agenda, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure that happens with a strong conservative leader who represents the conservative voters across the country who sent us to Washington.
Congressman Bob Good, thank you for your time this morning. We look forward to seeing what happens tomorrow, sir.
Thank you, Griff. Great to be with you.
More Fox and Friends straight ahead.